to all in Harris Hall and those online joining us. Welcome. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Lane County Board of County Commissioners to order. It's Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. I read this last week and I had to share it. It was a great story. It was the fleas. Holocaust survivor Corrie ten Boom tells the story when she and her sister arrived at the second internment camp in Germany. Block 28. All-women building was infested with fleas. Corrie said she couldn't take it anymore and was about to give up, but her sister said they should give thanks for everything as she believed in the words she had read. Block 28 became an oasis where women were encouraged and almost all survived. They worshiped freely and were left alone by the guards. Upon release, Corrie asked one of the guards why they were left alone, and he said it was because of the fleas. Corrie said sometimes the very thing we want to remove ends up helping us the most. So I thought that was really inspiring this week, so thank you for letting me share that. Mr. Mokrasky, good morning. How are you, sir?
Great,
good morning to my colleagues. How are you all today? Good, good. Is there any adjustments to our agenda, sir?
Not from staff.
I would like to make a suggestion on an adjustment. Public Works item 11B, the discussion and update on the impacts of waste exploration in the Waste Management Division budget. Per board assignment, it was a board assignment by the vice chair, and I think there's some pertinent information coming this week and would like to move that item discussion to the next week. Yes, please.
Thank you. It is a discussion-only item, Chair, so I'm not sure why we can't have the discussion. Then if there's new updated information, that will just come back to us later. The materials are presented, the item's been noticed. The public is attending to this particular initiative quite closely, and so at least having the presentation, especially as it relates to the other Public Works item today, I think would still be really useful, and then happy to, if there's new information or new status, to have that come back to us as another item.
Noted. Vice Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Well, I think that the information, I would like to have all the information before we have the presentation, being that it was my board assignment. I feel this information could be very important to what we would hear, and I would just like to put it off until we have all the information. I know staff is very busy, and I don't see the need to have two presentations if we have one and then would like another one.
I don't mean to belabor. I mean, this just requires consensus to adjust the agenda. I don't support moving the item because I don't believe, particularly since it's a 90-minute item, I'm not sure when this would come back to us, given we have just one more up week before we break for the holidays. So I'm concerned that I'm concerned about time management and the public's perception of us pulling such a significant item from our agenda at the 11th hour. So I've registered my concern.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Farr.
I'm not in support of changing, and here's why. This is an ongoing item. We've been talking about it for a lot of years now. More information is coming on a regular basis. I expect more will come soon. More will come next month. More will come subsequent to that. And it's an opportunity for us in front of the public to talk about what we have so far. So I think I'm in support of retaining the agenda as it is.
Noted. Thank you.
Same.
All right. There's no adjustments to the agenda then, Mr. Mokrasky. Thank you. Is there any emergency business?
No.
Great, thank you. We have a awesome employee recognition. I noticed the employee just walked through the door in perfect timing, so we're really looking forward to this. And Mr. Greg Rickoff, I believe you might be heading this up, or Mr. Mokrasky, you might be announcing this. Go ahead,
I'll make
sir.
some comments. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Good morning. I'll make some comments, and then our Director of Community Justice and Rehabilitation Services will add to that. We have with us Clint Riley. You all know Clint. He is a former captain of the jail. He retired as captain of the Lane County Jail a couple years ago now, it seems, and we asked Clint to spearhead the development of the new Lane County Behavioral Health Deflection Program. So Clint serves as the deflection program manager leading this effort. This program was a result of recent Measure 110 reform to well, let me get this. Measure 110 essentially decriminalized drug possession. There was an attempt to refer that to the ballot. Lane County stepped in and said, you know, as opposed to just complain about one or the other solution, why don't we actually bring our own solution? We did that. We sat with our law enforcement, public safety partners, and actually designed what we felt would be a really workable outstanding program, and then brought on board the person that we needed to lead that effort. Having witnessed countless people affected by substance use disorder and addiction cycle in and out of the jail, and having seen what it took for some of them to break that cycle, Clint built a program here along with us that is an inclusive recovery program, as inclusive as any recovery program in the state of Oregon, and we believe is really actually leading the state. The program allows participants to build a pathway to recovery that can work for them and offer them the best chance of success at what is one of the hardest things to accomplish. Recovery, for anyone who has dealt with recovery themselves or has family or friends, you know this. Through Clint's efforts, more than 100 community partners and all local law enforcement agencies are participating in supporting people who are choosing recovery. I'll just make a note that, you know, Clint and our district attorney spent a lot of time in preparation before we launched this program, going and meeting with all of the law enforcement agencies throughout Lane County, right? It's not, of course, we think about the Eugene Police Department and Springfield Police Department, but we have 10 rural cities and state police and the sheriff's office. They've met with all of them to begin to build that trust that this program could actually work, because the program being successful requires trust from law enforcement. So notably, Clint sought out and found a housing provider, Reveille Foundation, so that participants who did not have stable housing could be safe and truly have a chance to obtain sobriety instead of being forced into the most basic survival mode that many had been in previously. That was a key component that Clint and the team had the wisdom to say, you know, we really have to have a place where we can stabilize folks to get them ultimately into treatment. We know that Housing First works. We know that's a model that is an evidence-based practice, and we knew that that was a gap in the system. Clint has been, for those of us who've worked with Clint, we know that Clint has been and continues to be an advocate, along with District Attorney Chris Peroza, who's been an incredible leader himself in this work, for widening the criteria far beyond the minimal state requirements to ensure the program serves as many people as possible. And actually, to date, we've had 34 people have successfully completed the program. I know several commissioners, if not all of you, have been to a graduation that happens. We've had several graduations on Fridays. It's hard to attend one of those and not leave having shed a tear, because you see what individuals have gone through to get to that place, a very rigorous program to ultimately graduate from and have the charges against them dropped. Incredible support and partnership and accountability from law enforcement, from peer support folks. So 34 people successfully graduated. Another 60 are currently underway. And Clint would tell you that he didn't build the program by himself, and that's true. But what Clint is too humble to say and to acknowledge is that we couldn't have built this without him. He's the catalyst, and you always need a leader, right? You can develop a program, but you need the champion and the catalyst to really build that lasting change in our community with continued investment from the state. I will note that I got a message from Mr. Rickoff, who these two were at a deflection conference last week, and I got a note first thing in the morning from Mr. Rickoff that we got word from Multnomah County and Washington County that they're actively looking at modeling around what Lane County is doing here, because they've heard what's happened here. We have some folks who've worked with those, including our newer county council here, who share information about what's happening in Lane County, and that's really impacted these other agencies. So you see that this is not having just an impact in Lane County and the lives in Lane County, but actually across the state, because we're serving as an example of what's possible when you do this type of work. So Clint's commitment to compassion, collaboration, and recovery-focused solutions was recognized this fall by Serenity Lane. We're proud to share that Clint received the Serenity Lane 2025 Community Leadership Award, and really proud to recognize Clint for all of our Lane County core behaviors. As we know, we believe strongly in when we're at our best, we're acting with passion to serve, with drive to connect, and with focus on solutions. It represents all of those. So I'd like to ask the director to share any additional comments.
And I would be pleased to share some additional thoughts. Chair Lovell, commissioners, we really do have a remarkable individual, and I don't want to simply repeat the tremendous words of the county administrator, but there really is an individual here with vision, with grit, and diplomacy. At that international conference, a lot of time was spent on how do you even get law enforcement engaged? How do you help officers understand and get them trained to be able to deflect individuals? Given Clint's rapport and his vision for working with law enforcement, his commitment to going to every shift change for all those shift briefings in every corner of the county, that tenacity and that grit and resolve, you get to graveyard, get to, all of the shifts throughout the time. And, officers know if this is the latest fad, the flavor of the week, or if this is something that might be real. And the chance to prove that this is going to work, was something that they were willing to give Clint, in large part because of his career, but also what he did bring to the table. The exceptional work and the remarkable partnership with Chris Perosa can't be, left unstated. He really has been a tremendous partner to this program, but he's a partner in large part because of Clint, because he saw it was worth the values there. The respecting engagement of law enforcement, the collaboration with the municipal courts. The municipal courts are active partners in this, and that is a one-off. We're not seeing that anywhere to the level that is here. The tremendous housing partner, people are remarkably jealous of the housing component and what Reveille is able to do with us and for us. But that was on Clint's shoulders, and that was creating a deep and respectful relationship with Reveille. We've been saying the best in the state. Now that we have a chance to go out there and see this on a national scale, and we see that the national experts putting on the conference send people to our dashboard, send people to Clint, want folks to contact us. We spent a significant time of the conference just having people walk up to us and say, "You're the people we have to talk to," and that really and truly is Clint. So he is humble. He's hating this. But here's a human being who has worked for the county in many different capacities, and he's always been saying there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way we can make a difference in people's lives. 100 different agencies have been part of our treatment portfolio. They're coming in large part because they trust what we're doing, and in large part because they trust the individual behind that work, and that's Clint Riley. So with that, I will be quiet.
Any rebuttal?
Speech.
I am hating this. I do work much better than I take recognition. So thank you both. I appreciate it. And I'm going to say what's in it. I had a small part in this. There's so many partners that were part of this, including the two of these guys right here. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. To the board? Yes, Commissioner Farr.
Chair Level, we have an 11 o'clock time certain.
Yeah, you're going to be all the way there? No, we actually got to be out here by 9:45, but
Well, that gives me time to talk about Clint then. Actually, I won't spend a lot of time, Clint, because I know you don't like the accolade that naturally comes with the work that you do and the job and the way that you perform the work that you do. But what you're doing today is just a reflection of what built up to your ability to do the job as well as you are today. Historically, you're way out ahead of the curve. And I first met you when Dan was a jail commander, and got to know you then. You helped me arrange for numerous public tours of the jail, and your humble nature explained the workings of the jail in ways that people came in with a certain mindset and left understanding exactly what you had brought to the job and the tremendous influence that you have on people's lives. And that's what it's all about, Clint. You change people's lives. You do. You change people's lives. One last little story I'll say is that, well, two, you and I made a presentation to the Oregon Board of Psychiatric Physicians a couple of years ago. And it was my presentation. I invited Clint to come and talk to me. They didn't listen to me at all. They wanted Clint. And they carried him out literally on their shoulders after the presentation because of the just description of the work that you were doing prior to the deflection work, which was in effect deflection work. It was very similar work that you were doing inside the jail facility. Finally, you helped produce a video that I took to National Association of Counties, their annual meeting, and it was a video that we're going to present to the Health and Human Services Committee. They decided that they'd present it at the General Assembly. Well, we got there, and Steve Mokranaski and I were sitting there, and I was waiting for the video to come on the General Assembly, and they showed it during lunch. So everybody's having lunch, and the video's up there. Oh, my gosh, people should be watching this. And I got a call from Neil upstairs saying, do you know that that video is on national feed right now? So Clint, you were on from New York City to Los Angeles. You were on TV that day. And really, we got a great deal of accolade for that. The work that you do gives legitimacy to the entire program. And it's because of the heart and the history that you bring to it, Clint. I could say more. I could take till 11 o'clock, Clint. But thank you so much for your ongoing service. Thank you for your past service and your ongoing service, Clint. I'll salute you.
Thank you.
Mr. Buck, go ahead.
Thank you for all your hard work. Legislators and policymakers do their best to create the best programs they can for our limited amount of resources, but policy is only as good as the people who are actually able to implement it on the ground. It is clear that our deflection program is excellence, and that is because you personify excellence. What you're doing each day is, so impactful to not only the individuals that go through the program, but to the families and all the people that surround those folks each and every day. It absolutely changes the way that our community actually comes to the county to implement and to really get our services and expands the way that they think about the county in a very positive light. And a lot of people don't know what we do. And so this is just another way to express, how we as a county care about our community and how we want to give back. And you give back over and over again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Trieger.
Thank you. I think you know how much I respect you and the work you do and the value of this program, and others have said it. We are a model for the state. And as the administrator said, the way this program came about was in that push-pull of people seeing a problem and trying to address it through a ballot initiative, but it's a complex systems problem, so the legislature tried to make some adjustments, and I imagine that will continue. We will keep having the policy discussion of what is the best way to really address the root causes of why people end up in an interaction with law enforcement who are then good candidates for deflection. So this is just one piece, but it's an enormous pie, and we are making such a difference not only in the individual lives, but informing those policy conversations. Because we get to show what happens when you resource a program, and we get to show what happens when you resource a program that has been thoughtfully created, not reactively created. And so I can tell you, I had some difficult conversations with some of our legislators who wondered, quote, what was taking us so long to stand up our program? And I said, well, it's not that it's not stood up, it's that it's in development because we're trying to build trust and get buy-in from all the parts of the system. Because without that, we know it's not going to work. And you're that hub of the spokes are all the different law enforcement entities, the nonprofit organizations, the folks themselves who are interacting with the program, their family members, their counselors, all of it. So without a really strong and sturdy hub for those spokes to go in and out from, to keep that wheel turning, and you're that hub, it wouldn't work as well as it has. So you're right, you haven't done it alone. We all get that, we all appreciate that, but you are that hub. And as for the graduations, I just want to encourage everyone in this room or watching, those are open to the public. And I've been to a handful of those, as as well as our treatment court. There's a very different feeling to each of them. They're both wonderful. They're what I call the "this is why" moments. I leave those rooms going, oh, this is why we do this work. To watch those folks share what it felt like to, in many instances, one, for the first time, have a graduation ceremony for the first time in their life. Many of the folks in this program haven't graduated, completed anything successfully. So just giving them the experience of that day, but all the work that led up to it and the opportunity you have created in the relationships that you've built in the community to allow people that experience is phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Yes. Well, I'll start by, excuse me, putting a little pressure on Mr. Rickoff. I still remember we were in your office talking PSCC, and as I was leaving, you said, "But we do have some good news. We have locked down Clint Riley to run our deflection program." And I still remember because I sat there and I got chills, and I told you that. I said, "That is great news." Clint, I think you know I've been a huge fan of you since before I became a county commissioner, and I would go through the jail and just see the way you ran it and the respect that was everywhere in that jail really shows me and everybody what kind of a leader you are. And that means a lot when you're starting up a new program like this that really, I mean, has amazing potential and I mean, you've taken it beyond where we thought it could go, and that's because of you and the leadership you share. I mean, perfect example, being there at shift change. I mean, seeing those things, that's huge for the people that want to strive to produce a great program for a leader that they respect. I mean, they want your respect, and that's because you give everybody that kind of respect. So I just want to say I appreciate everything you do, and I look forward to where this is headed, and I am really glad that you were in that seat. I really am. So thank you, Mr. Rickoff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, how much time can you bear this now, Clint? Any more? Are you about to your limit? Yeah, I echo all the comments that my colleagues have said, but you know, our mantra and our mission statement for Lane County is we improve lives. And some of those people are so deeply invested, and some of those, very few of those people are so deeply immersed in doing that we don't notice them, but we can't imagine life without them. And Clint, you're that person that reminds me of someone who's so deeply immersed in improving people's lives. And as I was thinking about this award, I just wrote down some words that kind of typified what I've heard people say about you, and these are also the words that I want to speak to. You're a doer. You're a tip of the spear leader. You're an inspirer and a heart-invested, on-the-ground servant in the face of difficulty. You are a warrior of good who snatches people from the very fire. With your drive and perseverance, you continue making your yesterday jealous. And in the words of Mr. Rickoff, so I admonish you to keep making those watching us and you, keep making them remarkably jealous. So thank you for your service. So we appreciate you very much and salute you. All right, thank you again, Clint. Have a wonderful day, sir. As we move on, we have our public comment section. The public can speak here in person or online at Harris Hall. The time is limited to 3 minutes, and we will ask for you to watch the clock on the wall and adhere to that 3-minute time limit so we can be fair to everyone. You do have your First Amendment rights. You can practice here, but we do ask you to do so in a civil manner. And I will call the first person to the podium and that person on deck. And we will start right here. The first person to start with is Linda Lovick, followed by Chris Cirillo, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Linda Lovick from Eugene. I know your meeting today does not include any discussion about the orphan local access roads, which are a mostly random subset of roads in the urban growth boundary that the county so far refuses to maintain. I am here to be on record that we citizens are still active on this matter, still very concerned about the unjust reality we have presented to you previously, that we citizens are still working on informing residents that they live on LARs and educating them, since Public Works told us that the county doesn't do that. that we citizens will not rest until the wrong has been righted, until LARs are adopted into the Lane County road system, until we are no longer financially at risk for road maintenance and repairs that our county roads residing neighborhoods are not subject to. We're grateful for the interest some of you have shown so far, and we're before you today to keep that interest active. Today, I will be making 2 new points. First, to clarify the support this issue receives. In our canvassing, 95% of those we talk to sign our petitions. So residents resoundingly and unequivocally demand that you accept these roads into the county road system. I ask you, what other issue before government today has support of 95% of residents polled? When our canvassing is complete, we will submit all those additional petitions to you to accompany those submitted already. Second, an issue we haven't brought to you before is what I call the buy high, sell low conundrum. By that I mean we bought our house before sellers were required to disclose LAR status, had any of them known it. The price we paid was unaffected by the financial cloud of self-paying for public road maintenance and repairs, and the legal cloud of being liable with no insurance backup for injuries caused by lack of maintenance or repairs, since homeowners insurance cannot cover public assets. So we, in good faith, having found our aging-in-place home, bought high. I assure you, most everyone we have talked with did not know their LAR status either for many decades. Now, with the LAR disclosure by seller to potential buyer rule in place, I see us taking quite a possible loss if or when we need to sell our beloved home to move into care facilities. Again, many others on LARs will face this same debacle. What buyer in their right mind would want to take on public road maintenance and repair when they would already pay taxes for those services and their friends and neighbors on ostensibly equal streets are properly covered? Please think about this situation, this bind, in terms of your own residence or your own family. I wish you all holidays that you'll treasure, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you so much. Chris Cirillo, followed by David Eigel.
Good morning, Commissioners. Let's pray. Lord, we exalt you, the creator of heaven and earth, the one by whom and for whom all things exist. You are the author and the finisher of our faith, the great I am, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. You are alone, immortal, and dwell in unapproachable light. To you belong the honor and eternal power forever. You are the King of kings and the Lord of lords, the Ancient of days, whose reign cannot be shaken. You are our deliverer, our shield, our strong tower, the rock on which we stand. You are the first and the last, the one who has no beginning and no end. You are the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world, and you are the Lion of Judah who rules with majesty, strength, and justice. You, Lord Jesus, are the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to you or to the Father except through you. Your purposes cannot be thwarted, and your victory knows no end. You are our great high priest, ever interceding for your people. You are worthy of all honor and glory and praise. Father, because of who you are, we petition you boldly. Bring revival to this city and to this nation. Pour out your Spirit to awaken those who are perishing. For you do not wish that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance and the knowledge of the truth. Tear the veil from blinded hearts and let dead bones live again. Let prodigals return and let cold hearts burn with holy fire. Awaken your church. Shake us from the apathy, comfort, and silence. Sober us, strengthen us, cover us with your protection. Defend and deliver your people. Pour out supernatural courage upon every believer. Courage to speak, courage to obey, and courage to stand firm. Lord, open the eyes of our hearts, as you said in Ephesians 1, so that we may know the hope to which you've called us, the riches of your glorious inheritance and the immeasurable greatness of your power towards those who believe. And Father, we ask you to restore. As you promised in Joel 2, restore the years the locusts have eaten. Restore families, restore marriages, restore purity, restore strength. Restore our city and our county to righteousness and peace. Stretch out your mighty hand over all those who labor boldly in this city for the sake of your name. Protect them, guide them, uphold them, and most of all, make their work fruitful. For you are God, sovereign, holy, victorious, and forever worthy. In the name of Jesus Christ, our King, amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David Eigel, followed by Charlie Rojas.
David Eigel. Good morning, happy holidays, and I hope you have a great day today. The reason I'm coming, I'll try to be brief. I've sent you information. I'll be talking to the trustees tomorrow at the University of Oregon. One new piece of information I had thought originally that when the D.D. Dunn report was put together, that the authors only had 2 30-day periods. Turns out they had a little over 1 30-day period to do research and writing on 2 individuals. The story of the history of the Ku Klux Klan in terms of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan of the 20s is extremely confusing. People who dedicate years of their lives to it get it, aspects of it confused because the people who were promoting it were liars and told different stories to different people, and their motivations weren't honest. So that I wanted to bring up. The other is the president of the U of O, the new current president, Scholz, when he came in and said, well, I'd asked him to review this, and he said he would. And his office sent me a notification subsequently that they had incontrovertible evidence, which they couldn't produce, and they didn't want to engage with me anymore. And this was an anonymous email. When I subsequently followed up with them through a public records request, they couldn't say whoever sent this to me. And they still not produced anything. To keep things simple, I will be asking them to send any of their incontrovertible evidence that Professor Dunn was the head of the Klan to you directly. That'll save you any trouble. Needless to say, they I assume won't send anything to you because they don't have anything. If they do, I can quickly disabuse them of it. So that's where I stand. Again, I hope I'll be getting your support in the future. They don't have a copyright on this history. I'll be working with the Lane County History Museum and other institutions to present the honest history of our community, something that we actually can be very proud of. 1923, Professor Dunn is in the paper calling for naming of U of O buildings with their Indian names. He's from one of the most racially progressive churches in America, the most racially integrated, the hardest of the hardcore supporters of abolition and the rights of the free man. I can go on and on and on, but as I have in the past. So I'll save your time, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Charlie Rojas, followed by Janet Ayres.
On November 14, 2025, the National Association of Counties issued a report regarding new guidelines for continuum of care, otherwise known as COC, and permanent supportive housing. The message is clear. The Trump administration is totally revamping COC and permanent supportive housing. The amount currently, or proposed, the amount of the budget spent on permanent supportive housing will be capped at 30%, meaning that it can be a whole lot less at times. Under previous administrations, it had been 90% of COC budget. Now, the bulk of the money will be redirected to forced drug rehab, job training, and getting people off the government dole. The Navigation Center is an essential element of the permanent supportive housing machine here in Lane County. Without a constant stream of federal magic money to house and maintain the folks at the NC, none of this works. I pass by there quite often, and I will tell you this. The people who are living there are not going to be able to walk out of that place into a $70,000 a year job in order to pay $1,500 a month for a studio the size of a broom closet. That's not happening. Question is, where have all of you folks, all 5 of you, been the last 10 years? Do you not read a newspaper, or in a couple of your cases, have someone read one to you? Donald Trump has for over a decade said he's going to massively revamp COC and permanent supportive housing. When Trump was inaugurated in January, that should have been a signal to you that the Fed funding was going to be greatly mitigated, and it required you to be far more prudent. Instead, you just threw away approximately $4 million on the Navigation Center. The Lane County Commissioners are a case study in bureaucratic buffoonery and straight incompetence. And by the way, Pat and Lori, did you at the last meeting, at any meeting, say to the people that came here from the Riviera Center, they needed to hire more security guards. Did you say that?
I did not, but I'm not responding to you.
Okay, well, somebody said that. Well, I'll tell you this, that you're going to start to hear from people at North Eugene High School, administrators and the principal, who are saying, we got serious problems here. I certainly hope nobody is going to tell them, go hire more security guards to make sure your place is safe.
Thank you. Janet Ayers, followed by Carl Darwin.
Good morning, Lane County Commissioners. Good morning, citizens of Lane County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. While listening to the accolades of folks, which is not really why I would expect citizens to attend a meeting. That is a job that is expected of you, and most of us don't receive that type of accolades, and just because you're appointed a chair does not mean we want to sit through all that. That being said, I spent the time researching numbers, hard numbers. For Lane County, Oregon, the percentage of Lane County citizens, Lane County, Oregon, according to my source, 390,000 to 400,000 Lane County citizens you are expected to serve. Of that population, 0.5 to 0.7% are deemed homeless. And I next asked, in my quick research of the Lane County budget, how much of our dollars, and they are not the state's dollars, they are not even your dollars. You have been elected to represent the people in this spending of those dollars, and you are being held accountable for that. The Navigation Center is the biggest buffoonery, not only in terms of the end result, the expectation, and I did the math on that, albeit some quick math. I'm a numbers person, and I would urge all of you to get more into the numbers. It amounts to that Navigation Center, David, Commissioner Lovell, Commissioner Farr, amounts to $5,000 per head per month. How could that and the rest is going to some out-of-state entity, which Mr. Senega wants to maintain a good relationship, Essential Solutions. The bulk of that money, I dare say, is floating right out of the state, not local. So $5,000 per head per month for 75 individuals. And if you do the math, $4 million per year, roughly, 3 to 4 million, and it's going into the third year, as far as I can tell, $10 million on 75 beds. Shameful. Shameful. I would urge all of you commissioners, and Pat, you need to return my calls. I've sent emails. You never respond to any. Mr. Senega has, Commissioner Senega, and I do appreciate that time that you gave with me. I would hope that you would listen more to your constituents. I hope all of you do that from here on.
Thank you. Carl Darwin, followed by Aaron Donnelly.
Hello. My name is Carl Darwin. I am a 47-year North Eugene resident. Went to North Eugene High School and have spent my life riding my bike, walking, and working, and going up and down River Road, 47 years of it. I want you guys to understand that things were bad during COVID, but things out River Road have gotten worse. There is a nonstop flow of drug activity in and around the Navigation Center, behind all of the Riviera Center shops. I've documented it. We've reported it. It's kind of tiring to have to do the job of what would be law enforcement. They have put up cameras up there every once in a while to kind of try to curb the activity, and it seems to slow it down for a minute, only to pick up again. I'm requesting that you guys discontinue this low barrier type shelter in the neighborhood. I think that there's better places for it to be put. One of which, a better place would be in an industrial neighborhood where you don't have children trying to navigate their ways to school every morning. People like me, when I was 10 years old riding my bike to school, 8 years old riding my bike to school. It's not safe. The kids are inundated with drug use, drug activity. The other day I saw a guy taking a crap out in front of to the adjacent AutoZone in the Riviera on the sidewalk. It's disgusting. It's constant. So, you know, it's easy to make policy that doesn't affect you. But what I'm requesting is that you look at just the facts of putting a low barrier center in a residential zone. I think that it's ridiculous. Put it somewhere where there's not so many people. I know the commercial folks out in the industrial neighborhood would probably push back on that idea, but it's definitely not appropriate within walking distance of North Eugene High School. There's been a huge uptick in gang activity in and around the Navigation Center. I believe there's probably some territorial disputes on drug dealing. There's MS-13 tags all over the neighborhood now. This has all happened since 2022. Since it went in, there's been an increase in drug activity. So I do believe there is a correlation between the low barrier shelter, where those folks are allowed to go in, get fed, be housed, and leave whenever they want to do whatever they want. There's nobody stopping them. So they go to the closest place to hide and do drugs in our neighborhood. Please shut it down. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Donnelly, followed by our online queue.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Aaron Donnelly, and I am the Senior Accounts Manager for Sanapac. I'm here to comment about item 11B on the agenda related to waste exportation. I've been with the company and in the local waste and recycling industry in Lane County for over 18 years, and I'm an active member of the Association of Oregon Recyclers and a board member of the Oregon Refuse and Recycling Association. I live in Cresswell, Oregon. I want to let the board know Sanapac and EcoSort will be submitting our responses to demand letters received from the county likely today. I also wanted to share in the limited time we've had to review the presentation documents, we believe there are unfortunately significant errors and misunderstandings in the material. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate your service to our community.
Thank you. And Jessica, we have an online queue, I believe, one.
That is correct, Chair. For those joining us virtually, if you would like to give public comment, please raise your virtual hand now. I see one hand raised. Jolene Simson. Jolene, would you like to be on camera for your comments?
No, thank you.
We can hear you, and you can begin when you're ready.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, members of the community. My name is Jolene Simpson. I am a resident in Commissioner Senega's district, and I am homesick, so not there in person, which you should be glad about. First of all, I want to recognize the incredible work of Mr. Riley. That was really an amazing presentation, and I'm so glad to learn about that. I am here this morning to say that we are in the midst of, and I fear actually only at the beginning of, an ongoing emergency. Community members throughout the Willamette Valley are speaking out against the unjust activities of ICE agents in our state. Salem, Woodburn, and Forest Grove city councils have declared a state of emergency due to the impact of these Department of Homeland Security raids. Springfield City Council members recently heard impassioned pleas from residents asking elected officials to speak out and stand up for justice. At a recent Lane County Commissioner meeting, residents wore hearts pinned to their chests and spoke with urgency about the harm that is being perpetrated by federal agents in our community. I want to impress on you there is a true and current state of emergency in our own community. I am here to say the work and the effort that has been done is not complete. This community-wide emergency continues and indeed is growing. I urge you to adopt a resolution similar to the one recently approved by the City of Astoria on December 1st, Resolution 2541, which condemns the use of unmarked cars, excessive force, and masked agents, tactics harmful to public trust, community safety, and constitutional protections. I urge you to counsel the Sheriff's Department and all public county officials of their continued responsibility to protect the public safety and well-being of all residents. Demand notification from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE when there are law enforcement activities in the area. I urge all of you to put aside partisan differences, honor the words and the intent of our constitutional protections, and make a meaningful, unified statement opposing brutal tactics and unjust detentions that ICE agents are carrying out in our community. This is inhumane and unconstitutional behavior. As public officials, you have a responsibility to continue to speak out and set the record straight. Let your constituents know where you stand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment section for the day, and all those who gave public comment, we heartfelt thank you for coming out and giving us your opinions and your comments, and we took them to heart, and I've noticed all of our colleagues took careful notes today, so thank you again. Well, moving along, we need to move along. We have our consent calendar items. All the listed items here are routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items. If the discussion is desired, that item would have been removed from the consent calendar and would have been considered separately. Details to each item can be found in the links attached to the item description on our websites. I would like to have a motion to approve the consent calendar, please.
Chair, I move to approve the consent calendar for December 9th, 2025.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Vice Chair and seconded by Commissioner Buck to approve the consent calendar. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. The consent calendar passes 5-0. We now have need to do a couple of reporting and work sessions, and we'll be transferring our public meeting upstairs to the Board of County Commissioners room. We will meet up there sharply at 9:55. We are recessed to the Board of County Commissioners room. Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. Ahead of us, we have a couple of reports and work sessions in the boardroom. It's still a public meeting, so the public is still welcome to be seated in here with us. Our first item is our number 6 item, our Health and Human Services item. It's a work session about the emergency shelter providers of models of care. This was a work session requested by one of the Board of County Commissioners. We do have a few of those ahead of us, and I believe James Ewell, the Homeless and Community Action Manager, is going to take the lead on this. James, so if you want to go ahead and introduce your panel and take over, sir, go ahead.
I will do, yeah. Thank you for having us here today, Commissioners. I'm pleased to be joined by 4 providers from local shelters here in our community. They're each going to get more in-depth about their shelters later in the presentation, but we have Gabe, and I pronounce your name wrong every time, so I'm going to let you do it. Pikewitz? Piavich, close. From Everyone Village, Bethany Cartledge from St. Vincent de Paul, Dana Peterson-Kraft from Shelter Care, and Keely Krausen from Equitable Social Solutions. So first, I wanted to highlight just our overall shelter services in our county, as these are just 4 of the 18 providers that we have countywide. So as you can see, we have a myriad of shelters that are across Lane County. We have shelters in the Eugene-Springfield area. We have severe weather sheltering in Florence and Oak Ridge and Bonita. And you'll see the shelters that are highlighted there with asterisks are shelters that currently receive funding through Lane County Human Services Division. So not all of the shelters that are operating in our community are receiving funding that comes through the county. We have just shy of 1,200 shelter beds total as of last month, 2025. As I mentioned, 18 total providers, and then we have 48 total shelter sites. So when we talk about shelters, it's important just to recognize that it's you can't really make an apples-to-apples comparison when you're looking at the various shelters, because there's just a lot of differences that are present in our shelter system. There's not a one-size-fits-all shelter model that's going to work for every individual or household experiencing shelter in our community. And ultimately, folks have unique situations that are going to require different types of sheltering, whether it be the makeup of the household, families, single adults, or just what their unique support needs are. Really, to have a robust and healthy shelter system, you should have options that are available to help a myriad of different types of households experiencing homelessness. Also, when you look at factors such as how folks access, you ultimately are likely to see different folks accessing different shelters. So through coordinated entry referral to shelter, folks that are deemed to have the highest vulnerability in our community are the folks that are getting referred to those shelters. And with self-referral shelters, those are folks that are, those shelters are operating their own individual wait lists, and folks are accessing those programs. So it's just different ways of access. And again, you know, when you look at the costs of a shelter, those are going to vary greatly based on a myriad of factors. Both the population served, the type. So as you'll learn today, there's just a wide spectrum of types of shelter in our community, the infrastructure of those shelters, and then where they're located in our community. And I won't get into that too much because each shelter provider is really going to cover those details. But just want to emphasize that it's very hard to just compare shelters apples to apples, because there's so many other factors that are in place as you start to have these conversations. I want to share some data from last fiscal year for our shelter providers so that you can get a picture. I don't know if I'm able to move this. Zoom is not, there we go. So this shows the unique number of individuals sheltered by the programs that are here in our conference room today. And so you'll see there's just the scale of folks served, you know, it differs greatly amongst the shelters. You know, looking at St. Vincent de Paul's Dusk to Dawn, they're serving the most folks currently in our system, and that would make sense. They're one of, if not the only, drop-in shelter that's available in our community, and so they have just ease access to that shelter is high. I did something. Bummer. Oh, now I've done too much. And then when you look at folks that are exited from shelters into permanent housing, so that's obviously one of the primary goals that we have for our shelter system is we want to see folks stabilize in those shelter programs and then exit into permanent housing whenever available. You'll see again that there's a myriad of exits for those shelters. And it would make sense again, when you look at populations served, and again, I won't get too much into it because I know Dana will cover it, but using Shelter Care Short-Term Medical Respite Shelter as an example, it makes sense that there would be, fewer exits to housing for some of those folks because they have significant medical needs, and sometimes it's exiting into a higher level of medical care rather than exiting into permanent housing that's going to be the most important destination for those folks. And when you look at percentages, so the highest, the shelters with the highest number of folks exiting into permanent housing are floating all right around 50% exits, which is a high number when you consider the barriers that exist for the folks that are accessing their program. And again, it would make sense that shelters like SMR and Dustodon would have lower percentages of exits to housing because with Dustodon, they're sheltering a very high number of individuals on a night-to-night basis, and it's that drop-in model. And again, shelters like Shelter Care or other shelters that may have high acuity or high medical need folks are working on other ways for folks to stabilize that may not be directly associated with exits to permanent housing. And this is just going back to the piece that I was mentioning about different populations and specifically when you look at households that are referred through coordinated entry. So what we deem as higher vulnerability on this slide is folks who have a score of 10 or more on the coordinated entry vulnerability assessment tool. And what that assessment tool is measuring is unfortunately, the likelihood that someone would die if they remained unsheltered on our street. So these are the folks in our community that have generally the highest medical need, mental health needs, disabilities, etc. And so it makes sense here that the NAV Center would have the highest number of folks with that high vulnerability because they are receiving referrals directly from coordinated entry. And so again, just painting the picture that each shelter is oftentimes serving different populations, has different models, and because of that, it's important to look at the nuance that exists with each of those. Every time I move that, it stops working.
Just click back on the screen.
Thank you. And again, just the last data piece to look at, so average days to positive exit. These are, folks that are how long they're remaining in those shelters. And again, there's a diverse data here, and that would make sense with diverse shelters. With 310 and talking with Bethany, and I'm sure she'll highlight this, that's a shelter site that folks with RVs and vehicles, and oftentimes I've heard from providers and from those participants themselves that, it can be a barrier sometimes to finding housing when they really are looking to maintain that RV or that vehicle as a backup for them in case they experience housing instability again. So with all of that, I will turn it over to the folks that are the experts in this work themselves. I will start here, I think just to my left with Gabe. If you're good with kicking us off, just give us
my map slide up.
I can.
Thank you, sir. Basics, Everyone Village, West Eugene, will turn 4 years old on January 2nd, so we're pretty young as things go. And we came into the ecosystem of shelters in a unique way through private business enterprises' interest, certainly more from the conservative right-leaning leadership of West Eugene businesses in the industrial sector saying, hey, we want in, and we want to contribute and be part of the solution. And we came into existence exclusively to start a safe sleep site, if you all remember that term from back in the day.
They did not add your slides to this deck.
That's okay. I got it. I'll paint the picture. So it's 3.5 acres donated by the Rexius company to start, and then Greg Steiner, who's the owner-operator of Harcourts West Realty, purchased a 3,500 square foot warehouse adjacent to the acreage that Rexius gave. So in 1 week, 2 private business owners said, here, we're in, we're committed, we're putting skin in the game. Very interesting choice to pick me to do it. But here we are. So 70 individual tiny wooden structures. We call them cottages of hope, are what folks live in. Obviously, we're all here, folks coming straight from street to village in West Eugene. We also added in the last year 10 medical recuperation tiny homes. All those tiny homes were built by, at this point, local high school students through a Team Oregon Build program that we helped to bring into existence across the state with Kotex support 2 years ago. That core basic sheltering activity of stabilizing and putting inside something that's warm and dry and safe. What's happening around that at the village, which just describes our site in general, is 2 workforce development programs, upwards of 17 paid part-time positions at all times on site, available to clients. Mental health, behavioral care is on site via CAFA, one of our partners, and Peace Health, Volunteers in Medicine provide the medical support on site. And then we have, in the center of all that, a real heavy hand on educational enterprise for folks as they enter the story. And I'll wrap up here so we can talk more about this later, but, and we self-manage wait lists, to James's point, very long wait list. We manage the tension between an existing wait list via applications that closed a long time ago because our wait list was like hundreds and hundreds, with close partner referrals, also trying to use the triage model that y'all use in our best way of folks who are most vulnerable, exposed. Let's get you stabilized before something really awful happens. And we feel like that educational enterprise piece has been missing from the solution set the entire time, and so we're adding it in now, and I'll share more about that later, but that's an overview of the village out in West Eugene, just off of Bailey Hill and West 11th.
I tend to talk fast. I have a lot of programs I'm going to cover. So we have 6 shelters across 33 sites. The first one is Dawn to Dawn. As James was saying, Dawn to Dawn is our lowest barrier shelter where people are able to access shelter same day. We find that is a kind of a key piece of importance, as sometimes folks are initially service resistant, but when they're presented with that option repeatedly, sometimes they get to the place where they are ready to go in. And then our goal, once we capture that individual, they're in that shelter space, is to really make sure that we impart and remind them of their inherent worth as a person and help them kind of connect to different service providers. Across the street at our Eugene Service Station, we have the Schleiz Resource Center, where we have different shelter or different providers who provide wraparound services to the folks that we're serving. And so we're hoping to move them on and upward on their path to stability. Our next site is our Egan Warming Centers, and that's one of the really special programs that we operate. We're able to activate when temperatures reach below freezing, so that we can just make sure that folks are able to survive. That started in 2009. As you know, with the funding shifts this year, we're going from 6 to 8 sites to 3 sites, but we have historically sheltered around 400 individuals a night through the Egan Warming Centers, and that's one that is really only possible with the volunteer support. So last year we had over 17,000 volunteer hours and 750 staff hours, and so that pulling that data piece was really interesting because it really illustrated that picture of how important the volunteer ecosystem is in helping that shelter operate. The next one would be our on-site parking program. So we have the safe sleep sites. We talked about, or James talked about 310 with the data point as far as an individual who is in that shelter space for 504 nights. And that's someone who's coming in with an RV or a vehicle, and that's maybe their only asset. So we're able to remove it off of the street, place it in that shelter. However, our goal is to help them find a more permanent and stable place. Those are the individuals that we're working with that it seems it takes the longest to cross that bridge. But outside of that 310 shelter, we also have long operated the safe parking program, and that's where we're at 25 sites across the community, and we partner with faith communities, businesses, nonprofits, and an individual is able to park an RV, and we'll have case management support who will come by and kind of connect with those individuals and help them on their journey. The next one is our 410 Safe Sleep site. We have 86 individual tents within the site, 6 Conestoga huts outside the site for individuals with pets, and that's another space where we're able to invite in other partner providers to kind of come along and provide additional support to the individuals receiving services. A key thing that folks are able to access at all of our shelters is a mailing address, showers, meals, laundry services, and just that connection with another person who's going to help you on your journey. We find that that is really a key piece, especially in this community. Sometimes there are so many visible homeless, and you can feel invisible even though you're so out there. And so having someone who's going to connect with you and engage makes a big difference. And then my personal favorite is First Place Family Center, and that's our family night shelter. We're able to support around 88 people right now, but it's 22 kind of hotel-style rooms on the inside of the facility, additional Conestoga huts outside of the facility. One of the things that really differentiates the annex is that families really come in as a unit that they present with as long as they have a child. So we see a lot of multi-generational families. Sometimes someone becomes unhoused and they're cohabitating with their mom or their sister, and as long as they have a minor that they're responsible for, we're able to bring in that entire family, which is really important. I know that was kind of rapid fire. Sorry, guys.
Just a quick data point question. Quick question. When you said the safe parking has 25 sites, is that 25 locations with multiple, potentially one or more vehicles at each, or 25 vehicle spaces?
It's 25 spaces. Many of the spaces are for a single parking RV, but some of the spaces will allow 2 or 3.
It's just 25 sites.
25 sites.
Got it.
And then I thank you for bringing up the data point. I did want to also call out in the vulnerability slide, I think it said 20% vulnerability, but it's with the number of people. So we're serving thousands of people every year. So we have the highest number of humans that are coming through our sites.
Thank you.
Shelter Care has 2 locations on Highway 99, so we're just up the road from St. Vinny's, and one is at the 969 shelter is a combination of, it's just an old hotel, and so each room is a single unit. Some of them have a couple of bedrooms, so we can serve up to like around 30 people, but there are 28 units. There are 2 grants that kind of fund that site. One, we work with the BURN, which is the Behavioral Health Resource Network. I think I got that right. And that's, those referrals come largely from, they get an assessment, and it goes through Unite Us. Once they have the assessment, usually there has to be some sort of substance use or associated with that. And there are 7 of those on that site, 7 units on that site, and then the rest are all from the All In. And across the street at 780, we have 19 beds of medical respite. And that, again, is another old hotel. It's just a little bit smaller. And we have 19 beds, and those are shared units. So you have a private bedroom, a shared bathroom, and a common space in each of the units. And now I can't remember how many of those units we have individually, but there's 19 beds, trust me on that. You get the difference between 969 and 780 is 780, we serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. On the weekends, I think they do 2 meals. There's also, we give out snacks and all this other stuff. We also have provider rooms where if you have whatever care provider coming to see you, we have private rooms where you can meet with that person and do wound care, whatever the case may be. And those are our 2 shelter sites.
Excuse me. I'm going to try not to cough or lose my voice this meeting, but Equitable Social Solutions currently operates 2 emergency low barrier shelters. We did just recently dissolve our 3rd medical respite shelter due to funding cuts, but currently we have a total of 89 beds, 75 which are located at 100 River Ave. That is serving chronic homelessness, or individuals who are experiencing chronic homelessness, and that could be due to dual diagnosis, substance abuse, being on stipend income, which would be Social Security, disability, or individuals who have just been chronically homelessness in and out of the hospital and jail system throughout their life. Currently, our medical respite bed center is only 15 beds. We do receive those medical respite referrals through hospitals as well as our shelter finder website. And we are able to hold at both facilities beds for our coordinated entry system for higher risk individuals. But currently, everybody is able to access our application online, whether you are a provider who is already seeing somebody who's experiencing chronic homelessness, another shelter provider who's looking for an alternative to maybe a higher barrier access point for your individual, or if you are currently having access to a phone, internet, or are able to make it to a local provider, we are able to take you usually within 72 hours. Currently, we are serving individuals who are experiencing substance abuse, any sort of schizoaffective disorder, people with legal issues, or anybody who's over the age of 18. So we do take our low barrier access very seriously. This does not mean that we do not allow people to access the same higher barrier levels of care, which would be substance abuse recovery, medical recovery, employment services. We do all have that all in-house. We do have individuals access 90-day care access case management, but they're able to stay past that 90 days really at any given time. Our medical respite also does not have a limit, despite the name respite would typically mean very quickly. What we're seeing currently is individuals who are temping out of medical respite are needing to access other emergency services such as emergency shelter to be able to continue to heal and get into permanent housing. So we provide all services on site. It's 24/7. Currently we have about 25 employees. That is also due to budget cuts. We did experience a lot of layoffs. That was previously more towards the 30s, but now we are currently operating at 25. We do have a full-time, almost 24/7 security system at the 100 River Ave area location because it is a bigger location. It is a higher vulnerability population, whereas our medical respite population is typically going to just access seniors or individuals who are immediately out of the hospital who are experiencing mobility issues, wound care issues, or anything that would typically have them bedbound for most of the day. But we are able to serve those individuals at our our lower barrier facility as well. And I think that's it.
Excellent. So we have a series of questions for our panelists, and then we'll have time for the commissioners to ask any questions. So we'll just go in the same order. And I know some of you already talked about this as we went through it. So if you have anything that you want to add about how folks access your shelter, we can start with you, Gabe.
Could we just go to the next one since we all kind of addressed
Does
that?
everyone feel like they've...
I think we hammered that pretty good.
What do you see as the strengths of your shelter models or models?
Excellent word. I just wanted to share with you commissioners a hopeful story in that I know this has happened between the four here, and many that are not here today that were on that first list have done this. We work well together as an ecosystem of providers, and we're all, because we're receiving all in funding at this table, have to be low barrier emergency, every single one of us. So we all have that same metric. If you're 18 or older, can do your activities daily living, and are literally homeless, we must let you in at this table. So there's all of that's the same gate to get in, so to speak. And Keely and everybody here has made a point really well, and you've led us with this. They're all different realities, more or less, in so many important ways at the different shelters, but we find that sometimes someone's at Keely's site or at Bethany's site, and for reasons that we won't talk about today, it's not working out. And then we'll get a phone call, hey, we don't want this person to go back to the street. That's against everything we all stand for in this room. Let's see if they would find a better way at your shelter. And we do those warm handoffs to keep people from returning back to the street when they're just not finding a way to do well inside a particular shelter. So just wanted to point that out. That's a great expression of our teamwork here at this table. And we're really proud to be a part of this network. Things that make Everyone Village distinctive or unique. We have the same contractual obligations that everyone at this table through our county contracts. Ours comes through the city consortium, as you know, but it's the same stuff. We are required 24/7 staffing. We do not do that. We have staff on site Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We have an on-call phone for evenings and weekends. And the last time the on-call phone was used was a very long time ago because of these two reasons that are distinctives of the village. The underpinnings of what we do and how we do it are based on two truths that we believe in at the village that we see producing great outcomes with our folks. We call our clients villagers. We call ourselves villagers too. Reciprocal accountability. That's holding each other to be the best version of ourselves at all points in time. Recognizing two truths are always present. The best version of myself is different at 8 a.m. than it is at 10 p.m., and the best version of yourself is different than mine. But nonetheless, we're going to do this at all points in time, because this is healthy adult relationship, and this is the auspices of what makes a good life. It can't be a one-way give-take show. We never do that in our personal lives. How many people do you, James, keep in your life that just do this? You don't, because it doesn't work. We shouldn't build or pin a system on that kind of transaction. So that reciprocal accountability, believing the best in someone and then saying, no, you're going to be the best version of yourself today. And then what's critical in that happens at the Village, which spins that wheel really intriguingly out in West Eugene, is when it goes up the ladder of hierarchy. What does it look like when someone who moved in yesterday and is definitely still high has the space to hold me accountable as the leader of the shelter? And that vulnerability is the ingredient that drives that reciprocal accountability. Always appropriate and above board, but it unlocks codes in lives that are really profound and leads to a really great reduction of recidivism, which if we're not all caring about recidivism, we're not caring about the right things in this room. That's what's really pinning the problem down. That's still the biggest gear in the system. The second thing really quickly that I'd like to share as a distinctive or unique feature of the Village is our strong belief that if you do not have purpose and meaning in your life, you're going backwards and you're stuck. And we want people, as you said, Keely, we want people to move forward in healthy ways and find that path for them so they can begin doing some amazing things in their lives and for their community. And we own that value tangibly with the workforce development positions on site. Folks can be gaining employment. We're great partners with the Chamber of Commerce, which many of you are, and the internship programs they created for our folks to get moving. And then that reciprocal accountability and meaning and purpose start touching each other in a life, and magic happens. And this is what I'll close with on this part. It's a double so that. The first so that is that someone comes to the Village from the street so that they can regain flourishing. Huge so that win. But that so that only leads us to the ultimate so that at Everyone Village, in that regained flourishing human will be growing and giving back to their community, because that's this. Right? It has to lead to that. These folks are part of the answer to the problem we seek to help them grow and move out of. I think we would all agree the housing and homelessness problem is so stinking big and heavy. If we do not all lift at the same time on three, we're not getting it off the ground. And that includes everyone that's a client in shelters, and believing that they are actually part of the solution to the bigger problem whilst they're getting help, because it's totally true. I can help you while I'm being helped at the same time. And so we compel and convict our folks to do that. Those are some key things to share about the Village. Mike, here's Bethany.
I think a key strength that St. Vinny's has is the experience. So we've been operating shelter systems since the 90s, and we have some really wonderful staff. We've seen that really be a benefit over the last 5 years, having the continuity and leadership with our homeless and emergency shelter system. So we have staff who have really learned what works well, what doesn't work well, how can we pivot and adjust. Some of the greatest benefits that we're able to provide our shelter clients today came from ideas born from staff who had just been in the program for so long. They thought, well, this works really well. It'd also be great if we added this. Another one would be the flexibility, and that kind of ties into the experience with the staff, just being able to adjust as needed. I think that that's really important in a kind of a fluid environment. And then I would think that the third one is kind of a commitment to continued learning, and really recognizing that we have a lot of expertise and depth in some areas, but we could benefit from having someone else come in from another agency in another area. So pulling in like senior and disability services, connecting with some of the other shelter providers. If one of our staff clients would benefit from a higher barrier shelter. So really kind of having that open palm approach of what can we do better and where can we partner with someone who has expertise in an area where we don't.
We've been around for a little while, shelter care too. I think that's the dedication of the staff that are at these sites. On 99, things can really pop off and get pretty exciting pretty fast. We don't operate like 24 hours 24-hour staffing, so a lot of that weekends, like what happens. But our staff is really like day one on Monday, they're ready to go. They're talking to people. They're out in the community or our little community, checking in on people as soon as they get there across the street. Our medical respite program just went through a couple years long process to become nationally recognized as a medical respite provider. And that was a lot of work, and those folks over there are really just rock stars when it comes to taking care of people. I think that our ability to have multiple grants to kind of keep stuff going has been kept us the doors open, and being able to kind of pivot and get flexible as soon as possible, that has kept those doors open. And those units have been there for a long time, and a lot of that too is some of our partnerships with places like Homes for Good, who owns the property, or some of our medical providers, Peace Health, who sends the referrals to medical respite. Those kind of connections are really key. It's like Gabe was talking about, that kind of reciprocal thing. It's hard for me to say, but it's
accountability.
Yeah. Thank you.
So ESS had two goals in mind when they took on these types of contracts. The first one being finding a cost-effective way to mitigate the burden that our local chronically homeless population has on our emergency systems, such as our jail and legal systems and our emergency healthcare systems, as well as taking a population that systems traditionally told everybody we're not able to be rehabilitated, we're not able to enter into the workforce, and we're really not able to be individuals who could be contributing to the rest of our society as they were painted typically in the past. And we feel that we've successfully done this over the last 3 years that we've had our two centers open by partnering with our local emergency healthcare facilities, our Peace Healths, our Trilliums, and other stakeholders to identify some of the issues within chronic homelessness that are typically having individuals be repeat customers in emergency services, in the legal systems, and how we can keep them out by keeping them inside of a shelter for an extended length of time so that they can recuperate, they can rehabilitate where they're at, and then they can start to take on that accountability, as well as taking individuals who are typically told they can't be in congregate settings due to severe mental health issues, behavioral health, or being in the throes of addiction, and being able to offer them tailored services where they're at with other individuals who are at different levels in their life but also experiencing chronic homelessness. Something I talked about a little bit previously was that the heightened number of individuals that we see are senior citizens who are on a fixed income and unable to access local resources, healthcare resources, while also staying on top of all the things that it takes to stay housed and to stay on top of your Social Security and your disability. And we're able to teach life skills, maintain them, teach retention skills, and then offer people the best housing option, as opposed to just getting them in to a cheap unit and crossing our fingers that they don't relapse, that they don't forget to go to their doctor's appointments, so they don't forget to go to drug court. We're able to take care of some of those problems in the shelter so that when they're exiting our program, they are stabilized, they are independent, and they are accessing resources with the rest of the community at a normal and appropriate rate, as opposed to being back in that system and utilizing the emergency room every 5 minutes, or being in and out of jail just to access some sort of shelter, or because they can't get to court or they don't know when their court date is. We're able to provide those resources that actually intervene and take care of some of those problems. And with our previous funding, we were able to pay the way for some of those issues to get expedited or to get expunged so that individuals could start back in the workforce or get back custody of their children, or whatever that looks like to them, to get over that mental health hump so that they can get kind of more to that stability ground. We were able to tackle that within the shelter, and we still feel that we have done a pretty good job of doing that so far.
You skipped one.
Oh, thought that's the one I was on.
Go back one.
That's the one we
That's
skipped
the one
because it was
the
helping to
access
access the
one.
shelter.
Okay, got it. Am I back around, James?
Yes, please.
Okay, so 4 years ago, Arlen Rexius gave me the keys to 3.5 acres, and then as I noted to you, Steiner bought the warehouse, and then I called the city and said, hey, I got some stuff you might want to partner with, and they said, who are you? And they gave me a map, and in the middle was the Rexius property, and it had a huge circle around it. It had all the West 11th businesses that are adjacent, huge multi-owner apartment complex, HOA neighborhood, low-income Churchill Estates, and all the businesses on that back eddy of streets in there. You guys are all familiar, I'm sure. And they said, everyone in that circle must give you your blessing to try, or you're not trying, Gabe, because we do not know who you are. And I went around, and everybody gave me the same answer the first time around. You, sir, should get off my porch. What they were seeing in their brain was the traditional paradigm of shelter activity in a neighborhood that's been largely covered from places like Portland and Seattle, and even locally at times. And so I went back around a second time because I'm like, I don't want to get the land back. That sounds like a really bad idea. And so all I could think of was playground days. I'm going to triple dog dare you. If you let us try, not only will we not detract from your neighborhood, within 2 years, we will increase your property values. Yes, I pulled that out of you know where. However, we have done it. So one of the things that is a unique feature of the Village is, I say it like this on tours, which we do all the time at the Village. We don't exist to serve our clients. That's not why we're there. We exist to serve our entire community, to do our part to make our community the healthiest, strongest, most flourishing version of itself possible. We do that by the work we do at the Village, like these amazing humans do at their shelters. But what we think about it is, how does the shelter itself flip itself inside out to be a resource value add back to its neighborhood and larger community? And we've, as I noted, done that miraculously. What does that look like? That looks like we're intentional about what's happening around our shelter in the neighborhood. What's happening as our shelter is big, like yours, and you're a lot of 80 souls on site, 15 staff, 45 community partners, 28 dogs, 46 cats, and 100 chickens. I'll tell you that later. What is that impact on our neighborhood we're part of, and then the broader context of Eugene and Springfield? And then intentional on serving. The shelter exists to serve its community, to be a viable, flourishing community and neighborhood member. We volunteer every year at Churchill High School, which is a few blocks away, by doing a whole village cleanup Saturday with other partners in the area. We've gone in the past to ATA Middle School and helped to distribute winter coats and supplies at the beginning of the school year for those middle school students. In our back eddy of streets off West 11th, we still to this day, in fact, it was what I saw this morning, folks come in with RVs and tents and they set up unsanctioned camps. City comes through and moves all that along, and oftentimes, you all know, pretty heinous mess is left behind. We just clean it up. It's our part in the neighborhood. We're good at it. We have the gear. We understand what that takes. And then that resource value add back isn't just a service model, and hear this clearly, it's not the staff. It's the villagers and the staff together, serving as a village whole out to the community. We have at the front of the Village a public resource for our neighborhood in West Eugene, a state-funded recycling center where customer experience is expedited instead of the reverse can slow process. We're very quick with the way that we do it. That's a resource value add back to our neighborhood. We are going to open in late January primary care medical clinic at Everyone Village in partnership with Peace Health and Volunteers in Medicine. Once we work the service model out, we're going to go to Churchill Area Neighborhood Association in early spring, and you know what we're going to say? We're here to share. We're here to share the blessings of the larger community is given to us. Don't wait 10 weeks for your OMG appointment. Don't go to Riverbend ER where it's all gummed up already. Come in your neighborhood and see the doctor if you really need to. We want to share. We want to serve you back. So here's the synopsis of all that. When I did that map show, as I described a few minutes ago, even though everyone ultimately gave me their blessing, this is how they phrased it. And one was a really staunch business property owner nearby the Village. He said, just to see you fall flat on your face, I'm going to let you try, fool. Go right ahead. You think you can do this? Go right ahead. Last summer, we have a huge partnership with the University of Oregon School of Architecture. There's a huge educational enterprise infusement for middle school, high school, and college students are at the Village all the time. U-Boat has classes in the Welcome Center. Like, it's crazy. Anyways, they were partnering with us, and we did the front entryway, and it really spruced up the front of the warehouse that was purchased for us by Greg Steiner, painted. We had done all that cleanup work, stayed at that cleanup work. Messes don't last long in that neighborhood because of the service that we provide to that neighborhood. And so one hot summer day, Joseph and I are sitting in front of the Welcome Center. It's the start of a Friday, and this business owner, real surly fella, oh man, he comes shuffling up. He's like, so, Gabe, you remember come poking around a few years ago? So I got my real estate guy. He's a real smart fella. And he can tell market increases, and he can even tell like the value of accrued improvements I made to my building. But, it's more than that, and not a little bit. And I'm here to tell you, I think y'all did it. I think you've improved the safety, livability, and curb appeal, to be honest with you, of the neighborhood. Thank you very much. The medical clinic's awesome. I can't wait to see that open. Please don't go anywhere. Please continue to serve and grow in the way that you have. We love that you're a part of this neighborhood and you've really improved it in a tangible way that is actually now benefiting my bottom line as a business and property owner in the area. We're very proud of that. It's not easy to do, but also that pride then flows through the story. And folks who like you said, Keely, have been discounted. You can't contribute. You're not going to help. Look at you. You're a hot mess on wheels. Those very people are going out and serving our neighborhood and our business owners like that with us, learning those tools, getting the teamwork aspect to make that happen, and then they're getting that compliment too. And when you see that, it's like magic happens. It unlocks a code into life. Back to you.
Thank you. I think one of the things that really differentiates Simpson Apologists that we're serving the highest number of humans. So we're seeing hundreds of individuals, unique individuals every day at the Eugene Service Station, dawn to dawn, where you're able to access a bed same day. We see, I think last year we saw 714 unique individuals. So we do have that 24/7 model. We are having potentially one staff member with 50 people, and you can only really do that when you have that reciprocity where people understand what are the rules, how do I need to operate, what does success look like here. And we found that not only serving that great number of people, it's the lived experience from the staff. So a lot of our staff who work in our shelter system have that lived experience. So they're really able to impart that hope and the possibility that I too was there and I was able to kind of walk through that journey, and this is where I am now. Even at our director level, 25% of our directors have prior homeless experience, and so that's really helped when we're connecting with the number of people that we're connecting with and kind of helping them on their step in the journey as far as what's possible, the art of the possible. I think we too, like many other shelter providers, are seeing a lot of individuals who have some source of income, whether it's Social Security or they are even employed to a degree, and it's helping them kind of that next rung on the ladder. But I think the difference with Vinnie's is that we're the lowest rung on the ladder. We're serving people with really, really high barriers.
Shelter care, I think what makes us unique is we have the privacy aspect of like just having each individual unit, which means we don't have even with having your own space at medical respite, to be able to lock the door, we just don't see the same level of we will have people who move in who are going to be roommates. They're like, we're going to live together, it'll be great. But those things fall apart because they just don't have, it really does seem like just having a door to lock is the key to like kind of just having your own place. Be able to like remove yourself away from this like heated situation that, gets you all riled up. And I think that's a really big, because we've just seen it a few times, it's just such a big deal to have your own private space where you can cool down or do whatever you need just to be alone.
I think what sets our two emergency shelters aside, when we first began this contract, we took a look at some of the higher barrier components that are typically within shelters. For our population, they're just typically beginning their journey through long-term emergency services like shelters. And we are noticing things like as simple as a curfew to wake up might be really difficult when you are accessing a bed for the first time in 6 months, 36 months to a year, whatever that looks like. Typically, mental health wise, an individual needs at least anywhere from 36 hours to a week or so for your body to acclimate out of fight or flight mode. To be able to even follow the rules, to be able to take accountability, and to be able to be a part of a community within a shelter, you have to get there mentally, physically, and you have to meet your emergency needs first to be successful and to even have conversations about being successful. So we took some of those components. We had a lot of lived experience panels with the help of the county. The architecture of our building really spoke to individuals who have a lot of institutional distress, whether it be incarceration, going through the system before, or any other vicarious traumas. And we took that into consideration so that we could acclimate people correctly in order to get them on, essentially the quote-unquote right path. So you can't expect somebody to attend NA classes 3 times a week at 2 times a day if they have never slept in a bed before and never had more than a meal once every couple of days. So to be able to acclimate their senses, attend to their physical health needs first, I feel really sets us apart because we're able to bring in those emergency addiction services. We're able to bring in home health, individualized home health care providers, wound care, mental health supports, crisis supports, or behavioral health, intensive therapy, right where they're at, so they don't have to kind of take that first step, which can be anxious for anyone, which is to make a phone call to a doctor and then stick to your appointment, or to get up in that 7 a.m. and get out the door, fight traffic, and then go to the doctor. That's difficult for most of us. So individuals who don't have all the privileges or accesses or resources that we have an even harder time. So to be able to bring that to them at 7 o'clock at night, at 7 a.m., at 3 in the morning, gets them in a matter of routine, gets their immediate health needs met, and allows them to actually focus on things like job retention or education or record expungement or recovery and detox. And I feel that has been kind of our focal point over the last 3 years, is to meet the emergent needs that typically are being shuffled around through drop-in services or whatever that looks like kind of in our county right now, and be able to meet those needs immediately, in-house, and reliably, so that individuals can focus on things that matter most to them, as opposed to just a hot meal or a bed. So.
Chair, we have 3 more questions of the panelists, but I recognize, I believe there's a time certain at 11, so I'm wondering if you would prefer to switch to commissioner questions, or how you would like to handle the last.
What are the last 3 questions you have left, just out of
Talk
curiosity?
about the community connections they have, or how they collaborate with other community partners, how the reduction in state funding has affected their shelters. Then the last question was just any trends related to local homelessness and housing crisis they want you all to be aware of.
Okay, we'll take a question or 2, and then I'm gonna have a suggestion. Go ahead.
I don't have a specific question, but I am very interested in the last 2 slides, those 2 questions about the funding and the trends. So maybe they could merge and answer to those together.
And then I have, at whatever, in the course of events that you want to respond to this, but we and certainly you use the term low barrier, high barrier a lot. But I think drilling down a little on what we mean by that, because low barrier to entry doesn't mean no rules or accountability once you get there. And some of us know the barriers can be about the physical access. It can be about, can you have your dog? It can be about, do you do better in a place with your own unit versus congregate set? So a little more conversation about those terms, I think, would be helpful for a lot of folks to understand generally, but also as it relates to the way you all provide different services and what low barrier and high barrier really means. Because I think there's a lot of misperception that a quote low barrier shelter means no rules.
Fair. Good question.
That's a good question.
Triple K.
I would like to, we've heard about what everybody's doing great. I would like to hear about what you could expand on and what you think you could do better.
Okay, so is that it?
Well, we got more. Commissioner Farr.
There are 5 of us.
Okay.
I don't want to hear from commissioners. I want to hear from you. we've been working on it, and it's not a time for us to talk about how much we know or how much we have done, because we don't know anywhere near enough, and you're telling us more. Each one of you has very different, very specialized services. Let's hear more from you, and again, let's schedule another meeting, because this was not enough time.
No, it wasn't. You're right.
Should we answer all of those questions, like kind of?
Yeah, I think if you could combine, let's start with the collaborations. I think a lot of you touched on this, but partners that you collaborate within the community, and then also how that ties in with the reduction in funding.
Okay. Collaboration with partners. Everyone Village has a somewhat known reputation as a partnership Shangri-La. One of our angles and intentionalities is bringing new partners and more leadership and service and workers onto the board of the sector itself. So we have really brought University of Oregon School of Architecture, Pivot Architecture, middle school students across the state, high school students, college classes are really a huge part of our team at the Village. And so how we collaborate, that's one way. We flip over every rock and get everybody in on the game that we possibly can, and we've grown quite an amazing bevy of leaders, young especially, that are now learning to lead as a part of the solution set and response to the crisis, which is amazing. Another great way that we collaborate, before we move on to the next one, is this was largely the work of Joseph and some of the other shelter providers who are not here today, and this is going to segue into that funding cut issue that you requested to hear about, which I'm glad you did. We just took heavy cuts across the board from the state level down through the county and the city and out to us here on the ground. And one of the ways we collaborate, we created with that group, Joseph led a self-sufficiency outcome matrix that is tracking client engagement data that's outside of direct housing outcomes, because we know part of that state funding cut was case management off the board, less funded and supported time to work with folks on their specific housing journey. So then how do we hold each other accountable? How do we then track what good work is happening with these obtuse and kind of wacky cuts at times? And so that great work has been adopted by the county, is now being used across the shelter ecosystem. So that's a great way to serve the broader network through collaboration. Great work on Joseph, and a key part of that was Jeff from Square One as well. And then we're the funding, right? Someone to the funding. Okay, so we are now, after the state cuts and reductions to our budget, we're $29.35 a night per person for our shelter, which is a razor thin wire, and our outcomes are growing and improving still to this day, and then the partnership capacity and the opportunities in front of us are just coming in hot, like that's stacking up around us, and that's evidence to us at the Village that our particular model, while it's very cost effective, also is allowing us through all these partnerships to take that, all these relational inputs are offsetting the reduction of financial inputs, allowing our operations to go forward unhindered, which is crazy and amazing and miracle-ish. And also we have growth opportunities that I just shared, which is just a really remarkable outcome given the times that we're in. And so that's how we're navigating the funding cuts that we have right now very well, I would say. And then we're bifurcating these other questions, right? Those are going to come next. Let's give
everyone on the panel a chance to cover those.
Okay, those two, and then we'll circle back around.
So we have a lot of collaboration with community partners. We really find that we have a shared success as a community when we come together and kind of triangulate a problem. And so we have government agencies that come in and access space at our center. We have other nonprofits. And so collaboration is definitely essential. It helps kind of make this the most effective. And then am I going into the
money,
the reduction? Okay, so the reduction really had meant for us a loss of 14 staff members, and so it meant all of our case managers. So we don't have any funding for case managers and client assistants. And the reason that that's key is that the county's goal has really been driven by housing outcomes, which I think is as important and essential. Our goal, all of our service providers in here, our goal is really to help move folks from homelessness into housing. And so without the folks who are able to kind of come alongside someone and walk through that journey with them, as well as the funds to move someone into their first unit, it's really halted the progress that we had seen the previous year. And I think kind of a key with that is that last year we had our highest housing outcomes, so that it felt like, you're working up towards something that you're seeing the success. You know that this means that you're removing folks from the street and putting them into housing. And we had cultivated our staff a lot. So we had staff who started in one position and were able to be internally promoted to a case manager. And so it also kind of caused kind of the staff to be surprised that even when you have really good outcomes, you're seeing the success, there can be this disruption, and it's not based on outcomes or data points there, exactly performance like you gave. And so I think that's been the biggest impact for us is on a technical side, just the lack of client assistance and the case management. On a staff care side, this kind of reinforcing this still is important. This is something we want to work towards, and making sure that they're aware that that doesn't change kind of the county or St. Vincent de Paul's goal as far as how we engage with individuals.
I think there's a couple of tiers for us of like, so our, I'm always encouraging people, our direct service staff, I'm like, make connections at these different places. So you have this person to call, and like, I can call them up, and I have my people that I can call because I've developed relationships with them, and I encourage our staff to do that. So with collaboration, there's the direct service staff who is making connections with people. There's also just like our long-term partnerships that we keep cultivating and feeding. The reduction in staffing that we've experienced, it was kind of hit with our administrative team. When you get these grants, you don't get a lot of administrative support in terms of financially, but there's a lot of administrative work that comes along with these. There's reporting, there's like monitoring, there's audits, there's all this stuff that takes people to coordinate and do, and we just can't pay for them. So a lot of our stuff hit our administrative staff. So, you know, like volunteer coordinator, so we're not able to get people in to volunteer to help us out. Like Highway 99, we just painted a mural on the fence in front of our medical respite. That was volunteer and due to our volunteer coordinator. So those are kind of that's where our reductions were hit.
Excuse me. So to touch on two things kind of at once, the county's vision for quite literally building the navigation center was to have already established community partners and individuals who already offer underhouse services, emergency services, and just social services be able to meet us where we're at. The layout of our building is quite literally designed for providers to come in HIPAA compliant offices and provide anything from healthcare to case management, dual case management, to other occupational job resources, anything around there. And so we are able to host essentially any type of service 24/7 if it's available at our center. We do a lot of things in-house. We have 24/7 peer support. We do have an on-site QHMA who offers therapeutic services or behavioral health services at any time. And then, of course, crisis intervention 24/7. But we do lean on these partnerships. We would not be the center that we are if we did not have the occupational services, the financial support services, the tenant education services, and those healthcare services that come to us to provide that very comprehensive case management and resources where they're at. I do feel that also helps keep our population out of the already overwhelmed systems. If you go to an unemployment office, it's usually packed, or if you go to a TANF office, you're waiting in line for 45 minutes. We are able to have workers come to us and also ensure that our individuals who are typically kind of ostracized from the community in general, ensuring that they get the actual health care and services that they need as opposed to them trying to advocate for themselves out in the community. The other side of that with the budget cuts, I do feel like they affected the majority of us very similarly. That was the county's intention, to not have anybody be too top heavy or to have anybody have to cut something that somebody else didn't. We did lose our case management and our client funding, which I just told you all these wonderful things that we're doing. That's a huge component of being able to be funded and offer these services. It does cost money. You do have to have intensive case management services for an individual who is quite literally starting from scratch with zero resources. That being said, we're not going to go backwards in our supports and our recovery that we've already offered. So we still provide 24/7 recovery services on site. We have shifted our model as well as taken into consideration the recent administration language changes that they'd like to see in the social service sector. By using a harm mitigation model. So we are focusing on community safety and of course resident safety, employment services, and recovery services, which our local community isn't too aware that we're offering those services. But as of now, because we've had to taper back some of that comprehensive support, it's looking a lot like the conversations are recovery focused and employment focused, because we do not know how long this budget cut season is going to last for us or just for social services in general. So the conversations are harder. They're a lot more focus driven, and we are still accessing, the same healthcare resources that we did, make sure people's needs are met. But it looks a lot like individuals are volunteering around the facility. We have a very wonderful landscaping team of residents who mainly just like to use the leaf blower, and I apologize to our neighbors because they love to leaf blow at 3 a.m. for some reason. But they are also offering dorm inspections for their peers. They are doing dorm cleanups, which is something that we just don't physically have the staffing to do, as well as providing kind of a see something, say something security component. We did lose our security officer on our first shift, so that now falls on the responsibility of our admin, our management, which is myself, and our staff that we have on site Monday through Sunday, usually 7 to 3 a.m. And then we have a security officer come on site for the next 24 hours. But we do have residents who are policing their own area because, believe it or not, they get a little discouraged to hear that individuals who are not yet able to access services, who are still accessing unsafe behaviors, still committing theft crimes, or still just doing anything that would typically make our population unsavory to the rest of our community, they don't want to be associated with that. So they're working diligently to be some sort of a gap stop between outreach services to help them get connected to services, but also in the nicest, most ethical way I could possibly say, gently shoo them off our property because they are scared for their survival with these services as well. So we have utilized what we have, which is a lot of heart in the individuals that we serve. We are very transparent with what's going on financially with them, and they have taken on a role of unpaid volunteered staff in the interim until we can get them back to where they need to be. And this is really hard. It was something that came out of left field, and it did feel like we just hit a bunch of awesome metrics just to kind of be taken back a few steps. But to focus on the positive, we got to have some tough conversations with individuals who just needed a push that said, hey, I don't know what your future looks like. I don't know what my future looks like. Recovery and employment are probably going to be the path to success for the next couple of years. And we've taken it with a stride, and we've had some pretty great success despite not having any money. So I think that's kind of where we're at right now.
And Commissioner Trigger, I wanted the low barrier, high barrier piece. From a county perspective, it's about how shelters are accessed. So it's about having as few barriers to someone being able to access. So that means potentially allowing pets or allowing partners or allowing a place for their belongings, not doing drug testing at entry. That doesn't mean that once the participant gets in the program, and this is the case for all of our shelters, there are expectations of them when they're in that shelter. So there's, community agreements that each shelter may have, shelter guidelines, expectations, and if someone is to, commit a crime or to use substances within that shelter program or sometimes within the neighborhood, there are, consequences for that up to being discharged from the shelter. So yeah, low barrier doesn't mean it's a free-for-all within the shelter. It's just how easy is it for someone to get into that shelter that given night.
And we all have the same standards because we're all funded by you guys who determine that at the county level. So that's identical at this table.
So sex offenders are not at all?
And for the individual site. So for us, we have some, yes, but like at our family site, no. So if it's Eugene Service Station, dawn to dawn, yes, we may be serving some of those individuals. If it's a family site, no.
We cannot search the expenditure.
Okay, we can't interact with the audience, I'm sorry. If we go off on that tangent, we can't come back, so I apologize for that. We're at time, but I think I would like to have head nods on my colleagues requesting another session of this, because I think there's still some unanswered questions that we have. This was a request that I made, and one of my main requests was about getting into the financial weeds about what's really the most efficient way. I've had constituents come to me since this request has been published about, hey, where's the skim coming from? And what they talk about is every time something's cut from whatever level, every time it goes through a processing level, it gets cut a certain percentage for staff time. And so the constituents are starting to see that as like maybe a barrier to actually getting the right amount of money and the full amount of money to the street level rather than being eaten up by a bunch of administrative steps along the process. So I think that's something that we could explore about efficiencies, if the government could be more streamlined in some degree. So that's kind of what I would want to see come forward. I've had nods from my colleagues that we could maybe ask Mr. Mokrajewski ahead of time for a future board assignment to make this continue at some point. Go ahead.
To that, only one thing, Gabe said, my wait list is hundreds and hundreds. Everybody's is.
Correct.
So yes, you have my head nod.
Okay, Mr. Mokrajewski, if you'd make that note, that would be great, sir. And I'm sorry we have to cut short. We have other reports on an airport that needs attention as well. And I want to thank all of you, especially from my colleagues' perspective. You guys do more with less every day, and you continue to do the impossible with something that's less than possible. And we thank you for what you're doing for our community. So have a great day.
Thank you, Jay.
Welcome. All right, we're going to regroup in about 2 minutes. We need to take a short little break. Let's do that.
You're pretty visual talker. Yeah, just fine. Cool. Schedule.
I also have an experimental role of being the liaison.
They're doing a lot of packed in this week. Oh, okay. Plenty for you to cover.
Because there's a lot of hyperbole
Just in this area.
regarding wellness and
I've been one.
916-711.
Well, we just have one.
Yeah.
Right. And the other question is, are there, this is in the field. Is there a need, what's real, and is there a way to buy a workers' costs? And could we do that if possible to allow in a place of declining resources, how can we resources best to use? Yes, MLK, a bed at MLK, kind of MLK is fantastic. Right, because there's intensive services. Right. Infrastructure. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. The question is, do we deem that? Could we do away with all the brick and mortar and Conestoga huts? Or do we make?
Okay, so I will offer that up. Great, thank you.
Debbie would need to do also.
Okay.
Just to share a lot of information together.
Okay, great.
Not on this one, but on housing, homeless, and human services.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Poor calculation on my part to take a minute to chat instead of use the bathroom. We'll see what happens. Oh, time management.
I was going to say, I can give you another 90 seconds if you want to go. Happy to accommodate.
Casting in a restaurant or something. How are you?
We're about to start, yes?
Well, Far's not here.
He's right there, chatting Dana up.
All right.
Administrator stepped out.
Catherine's still loading slides, so.
I think everybody
Well,
Good morning.
a
There were
bathroom
two
break.
PowerPoint presentations and apparently you have one, so trying to figure out if we can get the other one
Okay.
sent over.
Okay, so you have a minute or two, Commissioner Trigger.
Doing it.
Negotiated.
Want to try emailing it to you?
I won't have time to load it.
Can you email it to me? That's what I just asked.
You can email it to me and I can include it with the agenda materials, but we won't be able to put that
Okay.
right now.
His throat.
Can we?
Set to go there, Ms. J? Set to go there, Ms. J? Okay,
It
thank you,
has to be-
appreciate it.
Okay. Public. Okay. Just let me know when. Okay, sure, no problem.
Although if you email it to us later, I'd love to watch it.
Okay. Kathleen can do that. Yeah, I will, of course, send it to you. I'll walk through it and you can use your imagination.
You know, I've been watching for years as anchor. It's really good to see you in the room in person.
Oh, thank you. How long ago was that, Kathleen? It'll be 19 years in January.
Not a chance, not a chance.
But it does not feel like that. Does not.
What'd you say, 19?
19 years at the airport in January. Yeah.
Flying that great as an airport.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we're still live. The meeting's still going. We did take a short little break. We did have 11 a.m. time certain, so we're just a few minutes behind, which is not bad for us on today's with its packed schedule. We have with us Catherine Stevens, the airport director for the Eugene Airport, admittedly in her 19th year in January. Such a pattern of great service. We thank you. This is our report, item 7A, on the Eugene Airport renovation and expansion project, which is, my understanding, has been a very moving target at best. And so catch us up to date, if you will. Catherine, anytime you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, very much a moving target. Thank you so much, Chair Level and Commissioners. Thank you so much for having me here today. And my apologies, there were two PowerPoints because the second one's very fancy and I couldn't figure out how to merge them together. And you don't have the first one. So you will need to use your imagination a bit and we'll send that to you so you can see the pictures of the projects that we're talking about. But I'm going to walk you through that anyway because it sets the framework for the second PowerPoint, which is the Liftoff EUG feasibility study launch. So just want to tell you a bit today about the Eugene Airport renovation and expansion project, the EUG TREX, or the T-REX, as we like to call it. The projects that are currently receiving federal funding, construction status, and then the next steps. This update will also provide detailed financial analysis of the Concourse C expansion and the launch of the Liftoff EUG feasibility study. And I'm going to tick through this pretty quickly because I know you may have quite a few questions, and I know we only have a half an hour today, so I'll be mindful of your time. So since 2019, the passenger numbers at EUG have increased 41%. And this includes pulling approximately 14% of our local passengers back from driving north up to Portland International Airport. And that's pretty significant improvement. Even so, 29% of our passengers in our regional community are still making that drive. And with the terminal facility at EUG over capacity, it's unlikely to change until we address our need for additional gates. And there'll be a chart that you'll be able to see when we send you this presentation that shows that the passenger numbers have actually been pretty flat over the past couple of years. And that's an indicator of our facility being at capacity and the constraints that we're facing. So I'll run you through a few of our most recent capital projects. Several of the projects have been completed or are currently under construction. And for this presentation, I will just be focusing on projects utilizing federal funding sources, which thankfully we've been able to obtain this year after working through some of our challenges with the new grant language. This summer's Concourse A asphalt apron rehabilitation is complete now. The project focused on rehabilitating the existing asphalt apron, including approximately 500,000 square feet of terminal ramp rehab and strengthening of the subgrade in key areas to improve safety and efficiency. The federal dollars utilized for this project were approximately $7 million, with our local share making up an additional 6.25% of the funding. And then this fall's 34 Right drainage improvements and wetland mitigation project included drainage improvements with the addition of a pump station and 0.42 acres of wetland mitigation within the 34 Right runway protection zone. And that was to improve safety for aircraft operations. The federal dollars utilized for that project are approximately $1.2 million with a local share again of 6.25%. And then the Concourse A expansion project will be starting this spring. Yay, we should all celebrate that. This is a project that will add approximately 7,000 square feet to an underutilized connector bridge as central shared seating space for all of the Concourse A gates. And this expansion allows for construction also of an ADA emergency exit lift, improving accessibility for all passengers, and upgrades to existing restrooms, enhancing safety and overall passenger experience, with an added economic benefit of accommodating more passengers, more job creation, and increased airport revenue. So this project had been postponed, then revived with the reestablishment of federal build funding. And the federal dollars utilized for this project are now approximately $18 million, with our local share again of 6.25% making up the balance. New funding sources that could be also included for that project include a Connect Oregon grant, which we will be applying for in the beginning of the year, and then potentially congressionally directed spending if those earmarks are allowed to go through this year. So moving on, we have the design of the outbound baggage expansion project substantially complete. This project includes a design and construction of the building facilities to support a new fully inline explosive detection system. And we received approximately $1.4 million from a TSA grant for the design phase. And TSA will enter into another what's called Other Transaction Authority or OTA agreement for allowable construction costs. New possible funding sources for that construction portion of that project include an FAA Airport Terminal Program grant, a Connect Oregon grant, or congressionally directed spending. And the construction timeline for that project is dependent on identifying those additional funding resources, which could include a PFC, a passenger facility charge-backed bond. And so airport staff, along with consultants specializing with airport finance and capital development, have identified nearly half of the funding needed for the EUG TREX program. And you'll see in the slide in this presentation we'll be sending to you in the orange section, it'll detail all of the projects where we do have funding identified. Those are the enabling projects needed ahead of the Concourse C build-out. And funding sources will include federal grants, passenger facility charges, airport revenue, and bond funding backed by passenger facility charges. The project total cost allows a maximum, utilizing a maximum of a 30-year bond for a total of more than $208 million with all of those different funding sources. But then the next slide you'll see will be a green section that shows the portion of the EUG TREX for which funding has not yet been identified. And this includes a total of approximately $240 million needed in addition to the $208 million that is already has funding identified. So why the big price tag, sticker shock? Because construction costs in our region are just extraordinarily high. And with the total project costs noted here, it's really quite daunting. Without the availability of additional bonding capacity, work on the ticket counter expansion, the C concourse, the bag claim expansion, and other projects that are associated with that C concourse expansion could not happen for another 30 years. So waiting 30 years to build out the Concourse C group of projects is really just untenable, as the airport is already over capacity. Passenger numbers are projected to more than double over the next 15 years. And without major facility expansion, that demand, and most importantly, the economic benefit that comes from that demand, will go elsewhere. So as a result, airport staff have been exploring non-traditional sources of funding, which could include additional state and federal grant funding, congressionally directed spending, public-private partnerships, naming rights, and benefactor funding. To further explore these options, airport staff are launching the Liftoff EUG feasibility study, which will help gauge which of those options are viable. And so right now I'm going to turn to walk you through the next presentation. Oh, good. There we go. So this is, there we go, the Liftoff EUG feasibility study launch. So as you know, the Eugene Airport is already a major contributor to our regional economy. But if we expand, that impact could be even greater. So you already know the convenience of driving to from not having to drive to Portland, all that traffic, parking, the easy accessibility, just being a short walk from the parking lots, and quick and friendly security, getting home faster after a long day of travel, and then also the savings from competitive airfares, parking rates, and no need to drive north and stay at a hotel. My apologies, this is out of sync. Okay. The Eugene Airport serves a large region that includes 5 counties, 1.8 million passengers. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what it is doing. There we go. 1.8 million passengers travel through EUG each year, and 71% of the passengers from our local region choose to fly EUG. There's an opportunity for almost 30% more of our local passengers to make that same choice and fly EUG. So the current challenges that we face, we reached our airline gate capacity in May of 2021. PDX offers more direct flights, and our airline partners would like to add more flights at EUG. However, our terminal is at capacity, which makes it difficult to add new destinations. Our facility needs to grow to better serve our region, both residents and visitors. So considering all the benefits, imagine if the airport was even better. Plans are underway to better serve our community in the near future and for many years to come. First, by expanding our current Concourse A passenger waiting area. Then, with the addition of a new C concourse and supporting infrastructure, we will essentially double the size of EUG. And this will allow for more commercial flights and better charter facilities for the Ducks, Beavers, and visiting athletics teams. We will also, of course, be expanding our parking with surface lots, which are not shown on this slide. The planned expansion will accommodate more nonstop flights. So here's a look at the cities currently served by nonstop flights at EUG. And here are just some of the nonstop routes possible with the terminal expansion. Atlanta, Orlando, Boston, Hawaii. So those are some of the routes that are most in demand, but I'm guessing you all have your own particular route that you would like to see added. Greater capacity in our terminal facility will mean more nonstop flights to more destinations, a dedicated charter facility, perfect for sports teams and special events, and greater convenience for passengers. So now that you've seen the potential nonstop destinations, let's look at how flying out of EUG instead of driving to PDX for a flight has less environmental impact. Right now, 29% of passengers in our region drive up to Portland to fly. That's nearly 250,000 trips to Portland each year. If the expanded Eugene Airport can persuade those passengers to fly local, it will keep more than 450 cars off of I-5 each day driving to PDX, eliminating 12,500 miles of driving from our roads daily. And this will save a net 5 metric tons of CO2 pollution a day, or over 3,200 tons per year. So let's compare the Eugene Airport's growth forecast with and without the new additions. The number of passengers are projected to more than double over the next 15 years. And without an airport expansion, demand and the economic benefit that comes with that demand will go elsewhere. Nationwide, airports support 12.8 million jobs. So let's take a look at the Eugene Airport's impact on local jobs and the broader economy, and how this proposal will impact that metric. The Eugene Airport currently supports more than 10,000 local jobs, both directly and indirectly. Personal income, business revenue, and local purchases are substantial. $43 million a year are generated in state and local tax revenues. EUG creates a regional impact of $1.6 billion. And with the expansion, you can see that the economic impact would be substantial. Jobs, personal income, business income, and tax revenues more than double. Regional economic impact grows to $3.6 billion a year. So the bottom line is the sooner we build Concourse C, the sooner we can generate an additional $2 billion a year in economic impact, totaling $3.6 billion a year to our local regional economy. We've identified nearly half of the funding. However, with traditional bonds backed by passenger facility charges, we'll have to wait for 30 years before being able to begin work on Concourse C and its supporting infrastructure. Waiting that long is really just unacceptable. So we are determined to find new and non-traditional funding sources. Instead of spending 30 years waiting to build Concourse C through traditional means, let's do it now. Let's generate an additional $60 billion in economic impact over that time period. Let's begin realizing the benefits now. Let's capture otherwise lost future income. And let's gain more jobs, more destinations, and a better travel experience for everyone. So we want to hear from you and your constituents about how you experience EUG with this QR code, and we can also send you the survey link. It's a 10-minute survey. We'd like to hear from everyone who lives within our catchment area, and please feel free to share it with family, friends, staff, employees. And then we also want to make sure that you get signed up on our liftoffeug.com website, and you'll be able to sign up to have updates as this project progresses. So we anticipate that the feasibility study will last somewhere between 6 months to maybe 9 months, hopefully not too much longer, because we'd like to get moving on this. We'll be gathering all of the best cases from airports across the country, and then also taking the temperature from folks in our community, both elected officials in our 5-county region, and also others that potentially might want to see the benefit and might want to contribute to this effort as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well done. Thank you, Catherine, very much. A lot of information. The big ticket item is the rest of that funding, and it would be really nice if someone just wrote us a check and we could build that tomorrow.
That'd be great.
Yeah, but the 6 to 9 months you said for the feasibility study, and then we're probably looking at analyzing that and getting it back in the public is probably another year. How far behind does that put us, do you think?
About a year.
Yeah. Does that put us even further behind, I would imagine, and how so?
Well, the good news is we've actually started this planning process in a timely manner. How about that? So we have 5 years to figure this out. So we can identify these additional funding sources, hopefully working with, like I said, all of those different stakeholders involved. Our congressional delegation looking hopefully at several years of congressionally directed spending, and then also state spending in addition to the Connect Oregon grant opportunity and those kinds of things. But then also really trying to find out, take the pulse, and I like to call this the University of Oregon model, but I'm gonna be careful how I say it. What I mean when I say that is potentially you could have a benefactor or a group of benefactors that comes in, sees that there is a need to build XYZ facility at, say, the University of Oregon or at the airport, and can come in and really build it faster, smarter, better, and then turn it back over, as they have done many times over at the University of Oregon, turn it back to the University of Oregon for them to operate whatever that facility is. Same concept for the airport. Come in, build it, and then turn it back. It's an immediate economic boost, and we operate it just as we are operating today, but with 8 additional gates.
That is a wonderful strategy.
Yeah, Commissioner Buck, please.
So I'm very interested in how to help you. I first brought this up because back in the spring, I was taking a flight, so I was upstairs and it was just packed, as it typically is, right? But then a plane that had just boarded had to deplane. And not only was it packed, you had all those people come off the plane who were very unhappy. And I sat there and I was like, this is an emergency management nightmare. Like, what if something happened and there are all these people? So and family conversations, we have long talked about, well, why don't we just have another terminal? Why don't they just build another terminal? And so I asked the board if we would be willing to host you here today. And then since then, obviously, you've already been doing all this work for some time and was able to hear your presentation at the Eugene Chambers Economic Summit. And so now I've had this rolling around in my brain a little bit. Had your consultant come out and we spent 45 minutes together in my office talking about what we could possibly do. And an important aspect that I've learned over the course of the year after thinking about this more was that in large airports, the airlines contribute to expansion of those airports, but they are not doing that always at medium and smaller airports. So the funding mechanism that large international airports have is not available to you. And so I was very curious why you think there's that dynamic. I mean, obviously you have to pitch that investment has a return on investment to them. But how do we appeal to those airlines to show that medium and small size communities are a base for them as well?
So yes and no. And so the large hub airports, an airline could come in and build an entire concourse for themselves, and they would operate at that concourse exclusively, right? And we see that model with the large hubs, not so much at medium hubs. At the small hub airports, there's roughly 385 of us, and so it's not that the airlines aren't contributing. They are. So anytime we bond a project, we have debt service, the debt service goes into our rate model, and the airlines pay for that through their rates and charges. The nexus is we must maintain a cost per enplaned passenger that is palatable to the airlines, because they are in business to make money, and we just can't cross a threshold where then they would say, your market's too expensive. We're going to go put air service over at this other airport that's less expensive instead of staying in your market. That is the tightrope we're trying to walk here. And so we know that with some of these projects, we can bond to a certain point, but that's where that first 208 million amount is, where we hit the wall. And then that we just can't go beyond that because our cost per enplaned passenger becomes not attractive to the airline partners. And then, not to get too in the weeds, but we have an airline operating agreement. They have a say in what they must pay in our capital program, and they have rights to veto. So it has to be a true partnership with the airlines to even have them engage in this conversation, to allow for all of those bonded projects and all of the other funding sources that make up the 208 million. It's getting beyond that is where we realize, okay, we've got to think about this differently and start really looking at some different ways of funding airports. And we've got some good ideas that we've gathered up from different airports across the country. I can tell you I've not seen this exact model before. We've seen some naming rights here and there. We saw some much smaller scale benefactor funding at, say, Provo, Utah. But this is much bigger, and I really have to give credit to the University of Oregon and their great benefactor base, because that really is where this idea has come from. I always say, really, if you think about it, the airport is an extension of the universities that are within our catchment area. And so all of the initiatives that they are trying to pursue right now, they couldn't do that without a strong airport with strong air service. And so in supporting the airport and the expansion, we're really supporting these universities and their expansions, and then the spin-offs that come from those, research and development projects.
I have just a couple of sentences. You know, during my 10 years on the Eugene City Council, the airport is in my district, in my ward, Ward 6. And when I was on the council, when we built what was then called the parallel runway, the new runway, which is no longer new. I was all in then, I'm all in now. So tell Dana what I need to do, and I will do it.
Commissioner Trigger.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And I did get to hear a little more at City Club. I wasn't at the Chamber event, but I heard City Club. So it's great to start piecing it all together, hearing how you present to different audiences. My only question is a reminder, because I can't remember, but it's a two-part question. When was the last expansion? And then what is the projected lifespan of this? If this could stay on the track of the timeline you're hoping for, how many years of growth do you anticipate this expansion will last the community?
Sure. So we've done some mini expansions. So the last one would have been in 2014, which was the new B gate hold room. We did a couple different things during that project, but that's where we expanded our security screening checkpoint and then created a whole new B gate waiting area. And then the C concourse group of projects, so that 240, whenever you build a whole new concourse with 8 gates, you need other things like airline office space and ticket counters and new bag belts for people to pick up their bags when they fly in, that kind of thing. And a whole bunch of really unexciting things like we need new boilers and we need new HVAC and just all of those things where you can't just keep piling on to an old building. So that's included in that C concourse group of projects. So if we were to do all of that, I think we would have at least 50 years out of that once it's complete. If you consider that the current terminal building in its roughly today format, was built in 1989. And then, like I said, we've done a few adds here and there over the years. The Concourse A expansion will be a great additional, kind of final expansion that we can really do in the existing building without, like I said, touching some of those major systems that we would just have to address before we could do anything else with it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's come a long way. I still fondly remember, but also sometimes got really wet, walking down the stairs that would get wheeled up. There wasn't even a tunnel, so it's great to see how far we've come.
Who remembers the old baggage drop, though?
Yeah,
That was wild.
Exactly that.
Any other questions? Well, Catherine, again, welcome and thank you, and thanks for continuing doing a great job and creating this idea, and we're looking forward to helping any way we can. I know all of us are on board, and this 5 years is going to go fast, so I hope you got your track shoes on, Dana, and we can continue to move, but we're all behind it. Thank you so much, though.
Thank you so much.
Your indoor track shoes.
Yes, exactly.
Can you email us that section?
Yes.
Okay,
So
perfect.
we'll make sure you get both of those. Thank you.
All right, we're going to recess for executive session. Before we do that, let me read us in. Today is Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. And the Board of County Commissioners will now meet in one executive session. This session is to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations and is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602D, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purpose listed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session, and all other members of the audience are precluded from attending. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. Members of the news media are not allowed to tape, video record, or otherwise record an executive session, and verbatim notes are prohibited. No decision may be made in executive decision. After this, we'll return to our regular session meeting at 1:30 p.m. in Harris Hall. We are recessed to exec session.